Great. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's October 13th. We're getting started a little bit late, but anyone who's going to join us has been able to join us. We'll start with the statement of compliance. This meeting is called to order. Annual notice of this meeting was provided to the Star Ledger, Home News Tribune, and Highland Park Planet on January 29th, 2022. In addition, notice of this meeting via Zoom was faxed to the Home News Tribune and emailed to the Star Ledger and the Highland Park Planet on October 11th, 2022, and was posted on the Borough website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, 221 South 5th Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, on October 11th, 2022, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. So Tanya, if we could do roll call, please.
Ms. Young?
Here.
Mr. Brushel? Mr. Chin?
Here.
Ms. Hadhazi? Mr. Hale?
Here.
Mr. Linares? Mr. Malay?
Here.
Mr. Perlman?
Here.
Mr. Stern Cardinal? Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
My name is Clifford Gibbons. I'm Mr. Thomas' partner. I am pinch hitting for him this evening.
Yes. Mr. Cosenza?
Here.
Mr. Koch?
Here.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for making it this evening. Tonight we have one item of business, and that is a review concerning the Highland Park Affordable Housing Program, amending Chapter 230 of the Code of the Borough of Highland Park concerning deed restricted control periods and mandatory set-aside requirements as proposed by council. This has been referred to us for a consistency review, meaning we have to determine tonight if this proposed amendment to Chapter 230 is not inconsistent with the town's master plan. For those of you following along at home, a copy of the master plan can be found on the borough's website, www.hpborough.com. On the main homepage, if you go to the government tab under planning and zoning, there's a link to the master plan and all its amendments for review. So Matt, since this came from council, do you want to give us a little overview about what we're looking at?
Sure. Essentially what this does is set aside specific percentages of new development housing as affordable. So in rental units, that would be 15%, and in sale units, it would be 20%, which is very consistent with what is sort of standard procedures throughout the state. It is consistent with what we put in the most recent RFP redevelopment requests. And is essentially codifying the amount of affordable housing set-asides that Highland Park wants in all of our new developments. Over, I believe it's 5 units. So it's really making sure that the affordable housing requirements for Highland Park are set in stone. It does allow for, in a redevelopment plan, for negotiations to go either higher or lower on that, but the basic standard requirements will be 15% for rental and 20% for sales. So that's the overview.
Very good. Mr. Gibbons, do you have any insight as our legal counsel on this new statute?
I have reviewed the proposed ordinance, and I believe that it's legally sufficient as to form and content. It does comply with I always say COA requirements. COA doesn't exist anymore, but it complies with the set-aside requirements, and I believe it is legally sustainable. So I have no objection to it. I did have the opportunity to review it at length the last couple of days.
Thank
Are there
you.
any questions? Can I answer any questions?
Alvin?
Yeah. As rather than looking at this from the like, is it legal to do like or consistent with like the land use law and COA or whatever we have after COA?
I know. The courts essentially, but
I think when this was proposed in maybe May, or it was earlier this year, I was trying to figure out why we took this approach. And one of the things that I heard from council, the borough council, was that our affordable housing attorney pushed this as necessary for us to be compliant with the MLUL. And just hoping to get some clarity on what that means.
well, in terms of compliance with the MLU, you have to have, as you know, under the MLUL, you have to have a housing element. It's a mandatory aspect of your master plan. It has to be, it's actually the bulwark of the master plan. And, a housing element to be legally sustainable itself has to have an affordable housing component. So by doing this, we have made our master plan legally supported. I don't want to keep saying legally sustainable, that it has all the detail aspects that it must have to be a complete housing element. And therefore, if we were sued, which happens a lot more than people realize, we would not be overturned on that basis. I will tell you, I've been special COA counsel. I know your municipal attorney, Mr. Schmier, a great deal, and I worked with him for many years. And I've been affordable housing counsel in a number of towns. This is a key consideration because to leave this out of the master plan is kind of like leaving yourself exposed. So it's good that the board has done this. And as I say, all the aspects, the 20% set aside, and the other details that are in the ordinance are consistent with the prevailing law. So we haven't gone off on on a tangent or anything. We're doing what we need to do to be right where we need to be, in my professional opinion.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
My pleasure. Happy to answer any other questions if needed.
Pedro?
I didn't actually have a question, but just a comment. Having worked on the affordable housing issues and all the lawsuits, this 15 and 20 totally aligns with what our standards were in the past, so that, it is, in a sense, it's codifying what we've already done and kind of establishing in the master plan what we have done and what we hope to do in the future. So, the only thing I saw that was an actual addition to was something about having, after 30 years, we as a borough have the right to continue it as long as we want or add to it. So this doesn't really, I don't think, have a major impact on other than, kind of putting it in the master plan, what we have done for the last 15 years. That's about it.
I go back with you a ways. I did work for the borough when Mrs. Hattinger was the zoning board attorney, and I've helped out Mr. Thomas a lot over the years. And yes, this is consistent with what your pattern practice has been for at least a decade or two, if not longer. So I go back to the late 90s. But I agree with Mr. Millette. It's essentially what it does is it codifies what your procedure has been, your custom has been for all these years.
Alan?
Isn't typically housing like this just for 30 years? And if we can extend it for indefinite amount of time, we could make it 100 years if we wanted. Is that going to impact redevelopment, making it less desirable in this town to redevelop?
I don't know, is my interpretation is that it won't, because in 30 years, I think most developers expect that most towns will have set asides, particularly like this, for as long as one. Our affordable housing attorney has said that he believes that that's the trend in the state, and believes that us saying that after 30 years we have the ability to extend it, that is something that is happening elsewhere, and is something that will in before 30 years will be sort of standard practice. So I don't expect it will have a detrimental effect on redevelopment.
Okay, thank you.
That's was that the Princeton versus the Avalon Bay developer? I think maybe 2017. I'm not sure on the exact year,
I
but
think
that
that's
was-
correct. Yeah, I believe that's correct, sir. The former hospital property.
And the courts held up the 30 years, or whenever we decide, which could be 100 years. Okay.
It's consistent with Judge Jacobson's ruling in that case.
Okay. I have a sort of a different tack on this issue, which is, it seems to me that given the exceptions for developments of 4 units or fewer, that most of the affordable housing generated by this set aside will be either along the downtown strip, or at the fringes where there's still any land that's like possibly developable. Well, I guess less so now that most of it has been developed as like condos or the Greenland Square. But is it anticipated that most of the affordable housing will be like in that downtown area, so
Well,
generated by this law?
Certainly all of the current redevelopment plan along Raritan Avenue would include these affordable housing set asides in those developments. So all of those we fully expect to have the set aside as indicated here. So yes, there will be the affordable housing in all of the new redevelopment along Raritan Avenue.
Okay. So someone who might be fixing up or like creating a fourplex somewhere in the middle of a, I don't know, single family or 2-family neighborhood, well, their neighbors wouldn't be expecting to see an affordable housing project due to this ordinance.
I don't think they'd be expecting to see a fourplex in a
Fourplex.
1 or 2 family zone to begin with.
Well, there's a few. There's
That'd
a
be an
few.
interesting variance that they'd be coming for. But
There's a
maybe.
few.
Yeah. I think there might be, I think looking at it, there's also the opposite problem, talking about discouraging people from redeveloping. If you include 4 family units, number one, how do you determine the 20%? It just automatically goes up to 25%. But I think if you tell people that if you're building something as small as a 4 family, one of those units is going to be restricted, that will discourage smaller developments or single property owners just looking to rebuild what maybe was already there, or for variance like the kind you're describing. But I think from the projects I've seen on the board over the years, the board has consistently taken the strong position that the affordable housing units have to be accounted for in all the new developments that have been coming down the pike. And I think that's very consistent with the town's goals overall to ensure there's continues to be affordable housing set asides, because our town is frankly very expensive to live in as a medium price value, either rent or to own. And it's important that we protect and preserve the ability to live here for people. So I view mandatory set asides for affordable housing to be consistent with our master plan, as far as I can see. So that's my viewpoint on it. Jeff?
Yeah, no, and Alvin, thank you. I mean, I think it's an interesting conversation. It probably not maybe to think through the ordinance, and I think I think maybe what Alvin I was thinking about when Alvin was talking was, you know, as a policy, do we try to distribute affordable housing? Affordable housing is defined in this case beyond just sort of the core or the periphery. You know, do we want them sprinkled throughout the borough? And about what's the best. You know, I think it's a fair policy approach, but whether we really want to accomplish that in this ordinance or not is another story. But I think it is fair to think through in the future, you know, that it's desirable to have affordable housing across the town, across the borough, not just on the arterial or at the periphery. So, I mean, you know, I'm not sure maybe that this ordinance, I think I'm fine with the way it's written, but I think it brings up a good policy discussion that the planning board could take up at some point and really think through that and think through the, you know, sort of the other issue in the master plan, which was, you know, exploring accessory dwelling units and that missing middle density stuff. We can maybe talk about that at some, I think we should probably have a conversation about that because it isn't mentioned in the master plan. I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth, Alan, but when you were talking, that's what made me think.
Well, to Alvin's point, the upcoming developments do all seem to be downtown, but let's not lose sight of the fact that it was part of the development on Cleveland Avenue for the American Properties development and the other one whose name escapes me, but the two big townhouse developments, and it's going to be part of the Buck Woods development. So it happens to be the next set of projects are downtown focused, but the larger projects as they've developed did have and continue to have that mandatory set-asides that are not on downtown and are set back in the more back residential neighborhoods. So I'm proud to note that did occur. It has been ongoing. It's not like, oh, it's downtown, that's where we're going to put it. It's down on South 5th and it's up between North 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Like those have been part of the more spread out, but it is very challenging to find that affordable setback in a more single family neighborhood when you're building individual lots, for this very reason. But absolutely, the problem of finding affordable housing and ensuring affordable housing and addressing the missing middle is an ongoing discussion.
Absolutely.
For sure. Any other comments? No? Okay, well, at this time, I'll solicit a motion to find that the proposed ordinance and ordinance amendment are not inconsistent with our master plan. Pedrick?
Motion to find that this ordinance is not inconsistent with our master plan. I think I said that right.
Jeff?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jeff Pearlman. Tanya, can we take a roll call, please?
Madam Chair, should we open up to the
Oh.
public first?
Thank you. I apologize. That was my error. Chris, thank you very much for correcting me. Tanya, do we have any members of the public participating in tonight's meeting?
We do not.
Okay, well, then at this point, I would in theory open it up, but having no members of the public joining us this evening, I will then close the opportunity. And I think now we can proceed with the roll call.
Mr. Chin,
I find that it is not inconsistent. Was that a yes or a no? That's a yes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Hale,
I vote yes on the no.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Pearlman,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes,
Ms. Hand.
Yes.
All right.
With that, motion passes, and Matt, you can take that back to council.
Thank you very much. I
for
appreciate
the next meeting.
I appreciate that.
No problem. All right, normally I would have next Scott, our building officer, give a report, but he's not joining us this evening. I will convey to you a couple of notes here from him. Not much going on in town. The Cleveland Avenue houses are progressing. The 2 modular homes on 7th are almost complete. And 37-seater brought in a demolition permit to remove an 8-car garage. That about sums it up. So that's his updates.
okay.
I don't know where the 8-car garage is on Cedar, but that's interesting to know that apparently they're gonna take it down. I don't know what they're
Only
gonna
one.
do.
It'll be in place for a new single-family home.
There you go.
Oh,
All right.
All right, does anyone have any other matters they want to discuss tonight? Any press actions?
Yeah, just I've been seeing a lot of the emails about completeness review for I think for a while maybe it was Gabrielle Estates and now more recently I think the project on Raritan Avenue. I think I forgot the address, but I'm just curious as to, you know, I guess the applications come in and they get distributed to the professionals, and then they go to like Shade Tree, and they go to the Safe Walking and Biking Committee, and so the memos are coming in, but they don't have context. I don't have the application, and so it's hard for me to I mean, it's just filing away, or you know, it's hard to know what they're referring. You see like comments on a site plan that we haven't seen yet, and I just. Are these applications going to be scheduled soon? And then if so, like when can we see the application so we can actually look at the memos? Don't, you know, there's no reason to look at the memos because they're referencing something none of us have seen. I don't know if that's, once something's complete, can the planning board get the application?
I think this goes back to something we brought up before,
No.
where I don't think the full application is part of the checklist, but we'd been talking about updating the checklist to include the full application.
Referring to a redevelopment information to be attached to applications. Yeah, I recall that conversation. To be clear, though, the professionals are reviewing the application for completeness, and in almost all the cases so far, Buckwoods and for 130 for Raritan, they're missing quite a bit of information, so we legally cannot deem it complete. So maybe the question you're asking is, can the board members look at the plans while we review for completeness? That's probably the question you're asking then. I think procedurally.
It's one part of the question, but if they're not complete, then that's fine. They're not complete.
Right.
I mean, I guess one thing is to getting these memos in before the application. So it's really, you know, it's hard. You know, you don't know what you're reading. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it's, you know, you get it, Chris. You've seen it. So you're like, all right, I got that, you know, like, but it's hard for, it's hard for me anyway to make sense of what I'm reading from the memos. I like getting the memos, but I'm just wondering if there's an order that could be more useful for, you know, planning board members when they get those memos and email.
Well, I'm gonna make what might be a controversial observation on behalf of the applicant, having represented some applicants, that before the application is completed, those applications do get revised and they do get changed. And I think if the board members saw how the sausage was being made before the final presentation, it might be prejudicial to their final application if they had taken the time and effort to make changes that would have upset the board or, you know, violated other procedures. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you're that applicant who had that weird thing that we were never going to approve. And perhaps that's a bit unfair to applicants who finally approach with an application that is complete and that they think is compliant. And maybe they've been working with our professionals to change things and make those modifications. So I agree with your frustrations when I get the memos and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what the final product here is. But I'm also aware that I think applicants have to have the freedom to make those adjustments in order to preserve what they intend to finally present as their actual application, as opposed to what's just in the works. So that's my view on it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Clifford had his
No,
hand up
Mr.
first.
Williams, for Mr. Williams first. No, the member, of course. Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Okay, in the past, long gone past, sometimes the Environmental Commission got the application. So we didn't have time to actually review it before the planning board meeting. So that's how we sort of got the application. We got some of the initial applications so that we did have time to review it. And if Jeff really wants to see it, he can always go see Tanya and she'll show it to him.
Well, I would just say, I mean, I understand, like, I don't want to see, I want to see the first draft of everything. But I will say that, I mean, Alan, you are on the Environmental Commission and you have seen some of these site plans,
Yes,
or they've come to us, and you are not prejudiced by reviewing them, and if they're not, I would say that I could represent it, I would not be prejudiced either. You know, and we do, the planning board's constructed that there are town officials and members of the plan and other committees, advisory committees who sit on the planning board. That's structured under law. So anyway, I don't make a big deal of it, but I would appreciate if, you know, there was a little more you know, predictability, or at least some sort of guidance where something is along the process, other than just seeing memos coming across my email. And I do want to read them. I mean, it's my responsibility to click on them, but I don't have anything to reference. And that's what makes it a little, I think, not efficient with, you know, my time anyway. I can only speak for myself, but
maybe various authors should give a little bit more background to what they're arguing about.
Hear that, Bruce? Same day you. All right. Oh, Bruce, you're still muted.
Alan, you think I'm vague? They had four things they didn't do.
I didn't say CME. I just said
Oh,
some of us should give some background.
it's fine. I'm bringing it up just as a point. That's all. I'm not.
I am with you that more information to me is always better. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I agree. Which brings me to the last thing I want to make a point of this evening, is that this is our last Zoom meeting. Our next meeting will be in person, returning to Borough Hall. We are discontinuing our Zoom meetings, although I understand there's a plan to continue to record the meetings potentially and continue to post them online for public review, so that they don't have to come to our meetings and they can check out what's happening on YouTube. But that being said, this is our last Zoom meeting. We will all have to see each other in person at Borough Hall in November.
Address
For
from the
better,
waist
worse,
down.
or So for
But
better,
on-
worse, or different, here we are.
Can I ask 2 points? One is, will there be a hybrid option for members of the public who do not wish to, some are immunocompromised and, you know, do not wish to, you know, take a health risk coming in person? Are we offering that?
So my understanding of that is that the administration committee, the mayor and the borough administrator are exploring what the potential options are for a hybrid option, but I don't think that they have come to that decision yet about how to offer that effectively. So yes, there are attempts to figure that out, but I don't think that those have been figured out yet.
Well, I wish they had figured that out before pulling people back in. I guess but I'm not on council. The second item has to do with meeting duration. Now that we're going to be back in person, the bylaws indicate that no testimony will be taken after 10:30 p.m. and public hearings terminate at 11 p.m. Now, granted, the members of the planning board can extend it. You know, there are some of us who have work the next day. There have been a couple of meetings that have gone past midnight, which was fine when it was remote. If it's in person, I really think we need to remind applicants and members of the public about our bylaws and our regulations. And I got to go to work the next day, and I do have family things to contend with. So I will need, I'm unlikely to be able to vote. You have to limit by voice vote to extend, meetings, testimony past 10:30. And I'm bringing it up because with Gabrielle Estates and other things, it could go late. And I think we're volunteers, and the applicants have professionals who are paid to be there, and we are not paid to be on the planning board. So I think we should, for members of the public and planning board members, we should try to stick to those times. And I just
To the extent that one was aimed at me, let me.
No,
say
it's not
this.
aimed at anybody. No.
Well,
Yeah.
let me say this, I'm in agreement with you. We've had plenty of meetings over the last however many years we've been doing this that have run very late. I do think that that's not an effective use of anyone's time, members of the public, applicants, or us, when we start going past 11, 11:30, almost to midnight. Although I think we've usually cut it off by midnight in the past. So your concerns are well heard. I too have young children and don't want to be a borough hall till midnight. and those
Thank you. Yeah.
considerations are important. And when we are scheduling things and applications, and we have applicants who we know are going to have longer presentations and longer plans, maybe we'll have to make a more concerted effort to spread those out instead of allowing double bookings on the bigger plans. If we can foresee like a really controversial topic that's going to come up, and people will just have to wait till the next meeting out of consideration. But we'll Tanya and I will work on scheduling those things when they come up. Pedro?
Just a quick question. There was talk about combining zoning and planning. Has anything moved ahead on that?
It's news to me.
I just wanted to Matt, I'm just curious.
I'm called Judy
Okay,
Richmond.
no is just good answer, fine.
No.
Yeah.
Not,
That's fine.
How will we start our annual softball tournament if we don't have another board to play against? All right. Well, Jeff, let me, again, I very much commiserate with your expectations with regards to how late our meetings should go on these issues. But thank you for saying it out loud.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
All right. I think with that, that'll be the end of our last Zoom meeting. Yeah, solicit a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion by
Second.
Alan Williams, seconded by Pedro. All in favor?
all right.
Aye.
All right. Good night,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone.
Pleasure to be with you all again. Good to
Thank
see you
you.
all again. My pleasure.
Yeah.
And
Good night.
You see, Mr. Giddens.
All right.
Good night, everyone.